The USDA final report showed that animal fats cause cancer and vegetable oils prevent cancer and cardiovascular disease. But independent research at the same time showed the exact opposite. So you go figure. The government is telling you one thing, independent research is telling you another thing. Who's right? Who's more biased? What do you think? I don't know. Nobody knew at the time. This is a Time magazine picture of Ansel Keys, who wrote the 7 country study. Everybody that knows me and watches my material knows that I love the Mediterranean diet. He pushed that, but for different reasons than probably it's really good for you. Ansel Keys was one of the first voices against saturated fats. But again, at the time, they didn't really understand trans fats and cis fats. That came a little bit later. So it's not so much the saturated fats, it's the trans fats that are bad for us. We didn't figure that out till too late, and then we were 25 years behind the rest of the world anyway. So this brings me to something that you guys need to know about in these studies and how they're marketed, particularly the press. So when the press, the scientific press, wants to write about something and they want to prove a point one way or the other, they will either use the relative risk or the absolute risk, okay? In this same study, if you look at the relative risk versus the absolute risk, you will get 2 completely different stories. So on one side, on the left panel, it's showing you, I want to say that's the relative risk. The right panel's the absolute risk. So if you look at just relative risk, it looks awful. It looks like there's a massive difference. Total plasma cholesterol, powerful predictor of death related to cardiovascular disease. As your cholesterol goes up, you're definitely going to die, and this is totally linked to saturated fats. The other side, it's barely a blip, doesn't really raise that much because that's the absolute risk. So the actual rate increase was 0.13% between these 2 groups, the rate of death from cardiovascular disease. But the relative risk was 240%. So you go from 0.13% to 240% with the same numbers, depending on which formula you use. I'm going to explain that now. So be mindful of this when you read the lay press description of scientific studies.
It's hard for them to see it.
So relative risk is always going to exaggerate the problem.